listen to me closely. Some of you have been waiting for approval, waiting for permission, waiting for someone to say, you can rise. But I came with a word today that will shake that mindset loose. You do not need permission to become who God already designed you to be. You do not need validation to walk in the purpose that was placed inside you before you ever opened your mouth to ask for it. If God trusted you with breath this morning, then heaven already voted yes on your future. And I stand here to remind you of something powerful, something life-changing, something the world never taught you. You deserve to rise without permission. Not permission from society. Not permission from people who doubted you. Not permission from fear dressed up as logic. When God planted that dream inside you, He didn't ask the crowd if they approved. He didn't check your background, your mistakes, or your past failures. He checked your potential. And today, I'm not here to entertain you. I'm here to awaken you. Because the version of you that God sees is tired of waiting for doors that were never meant to open. It's time to stand up, rise up, and walk forward unapologetically. Before people ever formed an opinion about you, before society decided what was possible, before labels, comparisons, and expectations started pressing on your life, God had already placed something powerful inside you. Your calling was not an accident, not a backup plan, not a reaction to your circumstances. It was intentional. And this is why the opinions of people, no matter how loud, no matter how confident, can never be more powerful than the purpose God planted in you. Think about it in everyday life. A seed does not ask the soil if it is allowed to grow. It does not check the weather forecast for permission. It grows because growth is in its design. In the same way, you were designed with direction already built in. Many of us were taught to look outside ourselves for approval. We wait for someone to notice us, to promote us, to give us a green signal. At work, you may have ideas that could improve everything, but you stay silent because you think, who am I to speak? At home, you may feel called to lead, to heal, to change patterns, but you hold back because you fear resistance. What you don't realize is that God already validated you by placing that vision inside you. People's opinions came later. Their approval is not the source. It is optional. Look at daily life. A child learns to walk without understanding criticism. They fall, they get up, they wobble, and then they try again. They don't stop and say, people might laugh at me. Confidence fades later when voices get louder. Somewhere along the way, we learn to doubt what came naturally. But God never changed His mind about you. The courage you had as a child was closer to purpose than the caution you learned as an adult. There are people living half lives because they allowed outside voices to overpower an inner calling. Someone told you that you were too quiet, so you silenced your leadership. Someone told you that your dreams were unrealistic, so you reduced them to something acceptable. Someone reminded you of your past mistakes, so you decided not to try again. But here, this clearly the same God who saw your beginning also sees your ending, and He did not design you to stop in the middle because of opinions. Daily life teaches us this truth in simple ways. A clock does not stop ticking because no one is watching it. The sun does not ask permission to rise. A river does not turn back because someone said the current is too strong. Purpose moves because it must. When you understand that your calling was placed inside you before criticism surrounded you, you stop negotiating with fear. You stop asking, am I good enough? And start asking, am I obedient to what I know I must do? Some of you are carrying ideas that keep you awake at night, not because they scare you, but because they excite you. That is not random. That restlessness is often purpose knocking. And yet, instead of answering, you scroll, distract yourself, or tell yourself, maybe later. Later becomes years. Years become regret. Rising without permission means honoring what God placed in you now, not when it becomes comfortable. People may not understand your timing. They didn't feel the weight you felt. They didn't hear the quiet push you heard. They weren't there in the moments when something inside you said, there is more. And that's okay. Your calling was not a group decision. It was a divine deposit. When God trusted you with it, He also trusted you to walk it out, even when no one claps, even when no one agrees. In everyday life, we trust instincts more than we admit. We choose routes home because something feels right. We avoid certain situations because something feels off. That inner awareness is real. In the same way, when purpose keeps calling you forward, it is not imagination. It is alignment. Ignoring it does not make it disappear. It only makes life feel smaller. Rising without permission begins when you stop explaining yourself to people who never had the assignment. It begins when you accept that not everyone will celebrate your growth. It begins when you choose movement over approval. You don't need everyone to understand you. You need to honor what God already entrusted to you. So if you've been waiting for a sign, let this be it. The calling inside you came first. Opinions came later. Fear came later. Doubt came later. But purpose was there from the beginning. And what God starts, no human voice has the authority to cancel. You were not created to fit in. You were created to rise. Many people say they are waiting for the right moment, but if we are honest, most of the time, they are waiting for fear to feel less scary. And fear is clever. It doesn't always show up screaming or shaking. Sometimes it shows up calm, logical, and polite. It says, be realistic. It says, you're not ready yet. It says, let's wait until things are perfect. That is fear wearing respectable clothes. It looks wise, but it quietly steals your momentum. Think about daily life. How many times have you delayed a phone call, a conversation, or a decision, not because you couldn't do it, but because you were afraid of the outcome? You rehearse it in your head 100 times. You imagine rejection, embarrassment, or failure. So instead of acting, you postpone. You tell yourself you're being patient. But deep down, you're just protecting yourself from discomfort. And the longer you wait, the heavier the fear becomes. Fear convinces you that safety is better than growth. It tells you that staying where you are is smarter than risking embarrassment, but growth has never happened in comfort zones. A muscle doesn't grow without resistance. Confidence doesn't grow without action. Purpose doesn't grow without courage. Every meaningful step in life requires you to move while your hands are still shaking. Look at everyday examples. A student knows the answer in class but stays quiet because they fear sounding wrong. A worker has the skill for the promotion but never applies because they fear rejection. A person wants to start a business, change careers, or step into leadership, but keeps waiting for one more sign. Fear disguises itself as preparation, but preparation without action becomes procrastination. Fear also likes company. It feeds on other people's opinions. It whispers, what will they say? What if they laugh? What if you fail publicly? But the truth is, most people are too busy fighting their own fears to analyze yours. And even if they do judge you, their judgment does not define your destiny. God did not design your life around human comfort. He designed it around purpose. Waiting for permission often means you are giving fear authority it does not deserve. You are allowing imagined outcomes to control real decisions. You are letting what if overpower what could be. And slowly, without realizing it, fear trains you to play small. You stop dreaming loudly. You stop expecting much. You stop believing that you can move without approval. Daily life teaches us something powerful here. You don't wait until you feel confident to drive. You gain confidence by driving. You don't wait until you feel strong to exercise. Strength comes after movement. In the same way, courage is not something you wait for. It is something you practice. Action comes first. Confidence follows. Fear also lies about timing. It says now, but later is not guaranteed. Opportunities pass quietly while fear is busy negotiating. Years later, people look back and say, I wish I had started earlier. Rarely does anyone say, I wish I had waited longer. Fear never warns you about regret. It only warns you about risk. God did not give you purpose so you could spend your life managing fear. He gave you purpose so you could grow into who you were designed to be. Fear will never disappear completely, but it does shrink when confronted. The moment you move, fear loses some of its power. The moment you take one step, the next step becomes clearer. Think about how light works. Darkness does not fight light. It disappears when light enters. Fear works the same way. It cannot survive consistent action. When you speak despite fear, apply despite fear. Try despite fear, something shifts inside you. You begin to realize that fear was never a stop sign. It was just a test of courage. Rising without permission means recognizing fear for what it is, a feeling, not a command. Feelings change. Purpose remains. Fear may knock, But you don't have to invite it to lead your decisions. You can move with fear and still move forward. So if you've been waiting to feel ready, hear this. Readiness often comes after obedience. Movement creates clarity. Action builds strength. And every step you take despite fear is a declaration that fear no longer controls your future. You were not created to live carefully. You were created to live courageously. Many people carry their past like a heavy bag. They refuse to put down. Every mistake, every failure, every wrong turn gets added to it until walking forward feels exhausting. They tell themselves, I would have been further by now, but you don't know what I've done. And without realizing it, they give their past more authority over their future than God ever did. The truth is, your past only has power if you keep handing it the microphone. Look at daily life. When a child falls while learning to ride a bicycle, no one says, that fall means you should never ride again. The fall is expected. It's part of the process. But as adults, we treat our mistakes differently. One failure at work, one bad decision in relationships, one missed opportunity, and suddenly we label ourselves. I'm not good enough. I always mess things up. This is just who I am. What happened? We turned a moment into an identity. Your past was a chapter, not the whole book. Yet many people reread the same painful page over and over, wondering why they never reached the next chapter. God never intended your mistakes to be a prison. They were meant to be lessons, teachers that sharpen wisdom, not chains that stop movement. Falling did not disqualify you. Staying down does. Think about everyday systems. When your phone crashes, you don't throw it away immediately. You restart it. You update it. You fix what went wrong and move on. But with ourselves, we are far less merciful. We expect perfection, and when we fail, we punish ourselves indefinitely. God's design was never perfection, it was progress. Some people use their past as an excuse to hide. They say, I can't lead because I failed before. I can't dream big because I already tried and it didn't work. I can't start again because people remember who I used to be. But hear this clearly. People may remember your past, but God responds to your obedience in the present. Growth does not ask for permission from history. Daily life shows us that experience, good or bad, is valuable. A person who has stumbled knows where the ground is uneven. A person who has failed understands what not to repeat. Wisdom often comes wrapped in mistakes. The past you're ashamed of might be the very thing that qualifies you to help someone else rise. Many people don't fear failure. They fear being reminded of their past. They fear that trying again will reopen old wounds or invite judgment. But avoiding growth does not heal wounds. It deepens them. Healing happens when you move forward with what you've learned, not when you stay frozen in regret. God never consults your past before opening new doors. He sees the full picture, your beginning, your middle, and your becoming. What you call failure, God often calls training. What you call delay, God often calls preparation. You may see broken pieces. God sees experience forming strength. Look at how life itself works. Every morning resets the day. Yesterday's mistakes do not stop the sun from rising again. The calendar does not say, because you failed last year, you are not allowed to try this year. Renewal is built into creation. And if renewal exists everywhere around you, why would your life be the exception? Holding on to guilt feels responsible, but it is actually destructive. Guilt says, I did something wrong. Shame says, I am something wrong. God does not deal in shame. He deals in transformation. When you keep punishing yourself for what God already allowed you to survive, you delay your own healing. Rising without permission means refusing to let your past act like a judge. It means acknowledging what happened without allowing it to define what happens next. It means standing up and saying, I learned, I grew, I am moving forward. Growth is not denying the past, it is refusing to live there. Every strong person you admire has a story they could have quit in. Every confident voice you listen to once doubted themselves. Every successful life has chapters they don't brag about. What makes the difference is not a perfect past, but a courageous decision to continue. So if you've been disqualifying yourself, stop. The past does not get the final word. God does. And if you are still breathing, still dreaming, still feeling that pull to rise, then your story is not over. You are not behind. You are not finished. You are becoming. Not everyone will understand you, and that truth can be uncomfortable, especially when you genuinely want to be seen, heard, and supported. From childhood, many of us are taught, directly or indirectly, that being understood equals being accepted. So we explain ourselves, justify our choices, soften our dreams, and slow our growth just to make others comfortable. But the hard truth is this: you were never meant to be understood by everyone, because everyone was never meant to walk your path. Look at daily life. When someone decides to change their routine, waking up earlier, eating healthier, focusing on growth, people around them often react strangely. Why are you doing all this? Relax, life isn't that serious. The moment you change, you disrupt the version of you that others were familiar with, and familiarity feels safe to people. Growth does not. So instead of celebrating your progress, some will question it. Misunderstanding is not always opposition. Sometimes it is limitation. People can only understand life from the level they are living. You cannot expect someone who is afraid of change to fully understand your desire to grow. You cannot expect someone comfortable with excuses to celebrate discipline. Their confusion is not your responsibility to fix. Many people stop rising because they get tired of explaining themselves. They feel guilty for changing. They feel selfish for choosing growth. Growth often looks selfish to people who benefit from you staying the same. When you begin to rise, some relationships shift, not because you became wrong, but because you became different. Think about innovators, leaders, or even people in your own life who broke patterns. At first, they were questioned. Why are you doing this? Who do you think you are? Only later, when results appeared, did understanding follow. Understanding usually comes after evidence, not before. If you wait to be understood before you move, you may never move at all. Daily life teaches us that we don't explain everything we do. You don't justify why you're hungry. You don't explain why you're tired. You don't ask permission to rest. Growth should be the same. Not every decision requires an explanation. Not every path needs approval. Silence can be a form of strength. Some people misunderstand you because they only knew an old version of you. And instead of updating their perception, they hold you hostage to who you used to be. They say, this isn't like you, when in reality, it's exactly who you're becoming. Growth often feels unfamiliar, even to those closest to you. Trying to be understood by everyone is exhausting. It drains energy that should be invested in purpose. The more you explain, the more you delay. The more you justify, the more you doubt yourself. At some point, you must decide whose voice matters more: the crowd's confusion or the inner pull toward growth. Misunderstanding is not a sign that you are wrong. Often it is a sign that you are early. You see something before others do. You feel something before it makes sense to them. And that gap between your vision and their understanding is where courage is required. Rising without permission means accepting that some people will never get it and choosing to move anyway. It means letting go of the need to be liked by everyone. It means being at peace with being misunderstood while still being obedient to what you know you must do. You don't need universal agreement to live a meaningful life. You need clarity, courage, and commitment. Those who are meant to walk with you will catch up, or they will make space. Either way, your responsibility is not to slow down your growth to maintain comfort. So if you feel misunderstood right now, don't panic. You may simply be evolving. Let your consistency speak. Let your growth explain what your words cannot. Understanding may come later, or it may not come at all. But your purpose does not depend on being understood. It depends on being lived. Many people say they trust God's timing, but what they often mean is that they trust it only when it feels comfortable. We like growth when it is gentle, predictable, and safe. We like progress when it doesn't disturb our routines or challenge our habits. But God's timing rarely works that way. When purpose calls, it usually interrupts comfort. And that interruption is not punishment, it is preparation. Look at daily life. An alarm clock does not ask if you feel like waking up. It rings because it knows time has moved forward. Comfort begs you to hit snooze, but purpose demands you rise. Growth works the same way. There are moments when something inside you says, it's time, even though everything around you feels uncertain. That inner push does not wait for you to feel ready. It comes because delay would cost you more than discomfort ever could. Comfort is familiar. Even when it limits you, it feels safe. People stay in jobs they hate, relationships that drain them, and habits that keep them small, not because they don't see the problem, but because change feels risky. Comfort whispers, "At least you know this pain." But God's timing does not partner with comfort. It partners with purpose. And purpose requires movement. Think about how muscles grow. They don't grow when they are relaxed. They grow when they are stretched. The discomfort is not a sign of damage. It's a sign of development. In the same way, when God stretches your life, your mindset, or your surroundings, it's often because staying comfortable would stop your growth. What feels like disruption is often direction. Many people miss their moment because they wait for peace before they move. But peace is not always the absence of fear. Sometimes peace is the courage to move despite it. God's timing often shows up when the path ahead is unclear, when support is limited, and when certainty is missing. If everything were comfortable, you wouldn't need faith. Daily life teaches us that important moments rarely wait. Opportunities come unexpectedly. Conversations happen suddenly. Decisions must be made quickly. Life does not pause so you can feel ready, and neither does purpose. Waiting for comfort can quietly turn into disobedience, even when intentions are good. Comfort also delays obedience by convincing you that preparation must be perfect. Just a little more time, you tell yourself. Just one more sign. But preparation without movement becomes avoidance. God's timing is not about perfection, it's about alignment. When you align with what you know you must do, clarity follows action, not the other way around. There is a reason growth feels uncomfortable. It requires you to leave what you know for what you're becoming. Familiar ground may feel stable, but it cannot hold the weight of your future. God does not rush you, but he also does not wait for fear to feel less threatening. When it's time, it's time. Look at nature. Seasons change without asking permission. Winter does not hold on because spring feels unfamiliar. Everything moves forward because creation understands timing better than comfort. Resistance does not stop change. It only makes transition harder. Some people pray for change but resist movement. They ask for elevation but cling to old habits. They want transformation without transition, but transition is uncomfortable by design. It is the bridge between who you were and who you are becoming. Avoiding it only prolongs frustration. God's timing often feels inconvenient because it exposes attachment. It reveals what you've grown comfortable with but outgrown. And when comfort is challenged, excuses rise quickly. Now is not a good time. I'll do it when things settle. But things rarely settle before growth. They settle after obedience. Rising without permission means trusting God's timing even when it disrupts your routine. It means choosing growth over ease, calling over comfort, purpose over predictability. It means understanding that discomfort is not a sign you are wrong. It is often proof that you are moving in the right direction. So if life feels uncomfortable right now, don't assume something is wrong. Ask yourself instead, what is this season trying to grow in me? Because comfort keeps you safe, but growth makes you strong. And God did not create you merely to be comfortable. He created you to become. Most people underestimate how powerful their own courage can be. They think their life is private, their struggle invisible, their growth insignificant. But the truth is someone is always watching, not with envy, not with judgment, but with quiet hope. When you choose to rise, even silently, you send a message to people around you that change is possible. Your actions become proof that fear can be challenged, limits can be broken, and life does not have to stay the same. Look at daily life. Think about the first person you ever saw break a pattern. Maybe it was someone from your family who chose education when no one else did. Maybe it was a coworker who spoke up when everyone else stayed silent. Maybe it was a friend who walked away from a destructive habit. That moment stayed with you, not because they gave a speech, but because their life said something powerful without words. Their courage gave you permission to imagine more for yourself. People don't rise in isolation. Confidence is contagious. When one person dares to step forward, it quietly challenges others to question their own limits. You may think, I'm just doing this for myself, but your growth creates ripples. Someone sees you apply for the job they were too afraid to try for. Someone sees you change your routine and realizes discipline is possible. Someone sees you walk away from comfort and starts believing they can too. In everyday situations, this happens all the time. One student starts asking questions in class, and suddenly others raise their hands. One person in a group decides to live healthier, and slowly the environment shifts. One voice breaks the silence, and fear loses its grip. Courage does not shout, it invites. Many people stay stuck because they think they are alone in their struggle. They believe they are the only ones afraid, the only ones doubting, the only ones dreaming secretly. But when you move forward honestly, without pretending to be fearless, you show others that courage is not the absence of fear, but action despite it. That honesty gives others permission to be brave in their own way. Rising is not about showing off success, it's about showing possibility. You don't have to be perfect to inspire. In fact, struggle often inspires more than success. When people see you rise after falling, they realize failure is not the end. When they see you try again, they learn that starting over is allowed. Your resilience becomes a lesson without a classroom. Think about how leadership works in daily life. The most influential people are not always the loudest. They are the most consistent. They show up, they keep going. They model what commitment looks like. When you rise, you demonstrate what it looks like to honor growth even when it's uncomfortable. That example stays with people longer than advice ever could. Some people will never tell you that you inspired them. They will carry it quietly. Years later, they may remember a moment you forgot, a decision you made, a risk you took, a boundary you set, and that memory will give them strength in a moment you'll never witness. That's how powerful your rise can be. Rising without permission also breaks generational patterns. When you choose differently, you change what others believe is normal. You raise the standard without saying a word. And once a standard is raised, it cannot be unseen. What was once a possible becomes maybe, and maybe becomes God often raises people not just to bless them, but to signal others. Your life becomes evidence that transformation is real, not theoretical, not motivational quotes. Real, tangible, lived. And when people see proof, excuses lose their strength. Sometimes you hesitate to rise because you fear judgment. But consider this: your silence may be more harmful than your failure. Someone else may be waiting for a sign, and your movement might be the very confirmation they need. By staying small, you don't just limit yourself, you unknowingly limit the hope of others. Rising does not mean dragging people with you. It means going first. It means trusting that your obedience will light a path. Some will follow immediately. Some will follow later. Some will never follow at all. But that is not your responsibility. Your responsibility is to move. So don't underestimate the impact of your growth. Don't minimize your courage. When you rise, you shift what's possible in the room. You make bravery feel reachable. You turn silent dreams into living examples. And without saying a word, your life declares to others you are allowed to rise too.